So, Jack of all trades, master of none. So, Jack of all trades, master of none. It's a figure of speech used in reference to a person that's competent with many skills, who spends too much time learning each new skill that he cannot become a master in any particular one. Now, originally, this was actually just the first half, Jack of all trades, and it was quite a positive statement, okay? But it's not continued as such. So I wondered whether this was a picture of me. I think my family would probably think so. They're nodding furiously, sweating away on a treadmill, doing the internet and everything at the same time. So is that master of none? Other languages, Chinese, equipped with knives all over, yet none is sharp. So it's jolly lucky that I wasn't a surgeon, really. Right, what about me? I was born in the Women's Hospital in Peel Street, Nottingham, colloquially known as Peel Street. Many of you will be familiar with Peel Street. Here is a picture of Peel Street. I like this picture particularly because this room here is where I stayed when I was a medical student, working with Mr. Eddington, who is sitting over there, and Mr. Sears, a past president. And the other thing I noticed about this is there's no parking sign, and indeed there are no cars. I mean, which hospital would you find these days with no cars outside? I think that's one park there. What I do like, though, is the bike. We've all seen Call the Midwife and going out on the visits. The other thing is quite interesting is that we seem to have Italian ambulances or something. So that is Peel Street from possibly when I was born. I only just made it, apparently, but that's because I was the fourth baby out of 6. So Peel Street has changed somewhat. You may know this. This is looking at it from further down the road. Let me just get this. This is, I believe, where the Labour suite was, this end. And down here, for those of you who can read, there is the gooseberry bush, which I thought was very appropriately named. Now, it's owned by Wetherspoons, and Wetherspoons, they do pick up the previous history of places. It's not a bike, but it's getting close, and motorbikes do come into this. So here I am. I've arrived. I'm a matter of 4 or 5 days old, and this is my mum, and there's my mum. Thank you for coming, Mum. Now, they said I was quite a good baby, but in this picture, my halo slipped a bit. This is my family. There's my mum, who grew up to be a nurse and then a midwife. And this is my granny, who was a source of great inspiration to me. She was married to my grandpa. Grandpa was a dentist, and he worked in a shop above Granny's pharmacist shop. And Granny was one of the first women pharmacists in the country. I believe she was also a suffragette, and woe betide you if you didn't use your vote. You had to use your vote. But she was very, very inspirational to me. So this is my family as well. It's sorry, it looks a bit blurred on here. I don't know if it's blurred up there. Yes. So there's my dad, who was a chemical engineer. We've already mentioned my mum. Then my big sister, Anne, who is a planning consultant for aviation, as she was involved with the Heathrow Terminal 5, I think it was, the public inquiries and things like this. Then there's my brother Guy, who sadly is no longer with us. And he was a photographer, a very good photographer, and this was probably one of the inspirational pictures taken by him. As you look, we're laughing because we're on a self-timer. Then there's me, my younger brother, John, who works for St. John Ambulance. I said I was the fourth of 6. There are 2 others missing, Oh, I know my mum will find challenging. My mum lost her first baby at 3 months old, Christine, and I want her acknowledged today. And also she had a stillbirth. Now that was also very significant because I was 4 at the time, and I must have remembered some conversations going on because my firstborn is called Claire, and Claire was the name of the stillborn baby. I only realised this sometime after my own Claire was born. I shall move on. I grew up, obviously, and then we moved into... I went to school in local schools, and then I went to Manchester High School. As I grew up, this is a photograph of me on my 18th birthday taken by my brother, and I think you'll agree that he was a very good photographer. Because I couldn't possibly have looked as good as that. I then went to Nottingham University, and two very proud parents with myself, looking quite daunted at what was ahead of me. And then I met and married my husband, Bill, who's over there and who's been very supportive. Very supportive throughout all my working life and very supportive in the presidency. And indeed, I forgot to say thank you to all of them for everything they have done. So there's Bill. He's a retired software maintenance contract manager for Rolls-Royce, EDS, excuse me, and subsequently Hewlett-Packard. He's currently Rolls-Royce Golf Society captain, and if we ask him nicely, he will organise a game of golf later on in the season. We were going to try to have it for the 7th of May event, but sadly Beeston Fields can't do that. But we'll be in touch about that. Now, family came along. Family life can be challenging, as you can see. Here I am with the weight of the world on my shoulders. We have Claire, who is in the audience over there. Claire is a secondary school art teacher and a librarian, much to her surprise. Claire is married to Greg. Oh, sadly, I don't have any pictures of. Sorry, Greg. Who is a secondary school maths teacher. We have Sally. Sally, put your hand up. Who is working at the University of Nottingham in the, just temporarily, the campaign office, thank you. Then we have Nikki, who's just graduated from the University of Leicester and is working at the University of Leicester in student recruitment. Then we have Bill, we've already mentioned, and we have David, who's managed to come tonight, who's doing a Masters in Maths at Nottingham University. So thank you all again for all your support over as long as you've been around. Thank you. As I said, if you look at my face on this, I'm happy. I enjoy being a mom, but it's quite challenging with the weight of all these people on my shoulders. So we had a family confab, and we came together. We thought we ought to do what the NHS do best and have a reorganisation. So we did. So I think it's better. I think it's certainly I've only got the two of them on me now. Now at this point, I'd just like you to note that these blue eyes, blue eyes, blue eyes, blue eyes, blue eyes. You can't really see David's in there, but they're blue eyes. I think I must have missed out on some genetics lessons because this arrived. So this is Noodle. It's a cockapoo. Endless fun, and we call her our emotional outlet provider. Wonderful dog. Thank you, Noodle. She's at home watching the rugby or the bake-off, we're not sure, and guarding the house for us. Right, anybody know who that is? Sorry? No, I believe it's Joey Dunlop. Joey Dunlop on the TT course in the Isle of Man. The Isle of Man is one of my passions. Motorbike racing is not, but I thought we'd just introduce it, linking with one of the former pictures. Isle of Man, I don't think of the Isle of Man with the TT, although the TT is a tremendous event to go and watch. I think of it more like this, or like this. It's Britain's best kept secret, it really is. Bill is Manx, and I've been to the Isle of Man for the last, well, since 1982. And we all love it, and I could, when I was preparing this, I was thinking, why on earth don't I speak for an hour on the Isle of Man? Because I could easily speak on an hour. It is just the most beautiful place. The history, the folklore, everything. It's wonderful. Strongly recommend it. The Isle of Man is my bolt hole, and I do a lot of my next favourite, the favourite things, walking. This is my standard holiday attire for the Isle of Man, and it's fairly appropriate. And this is the Radney Folin, the Path of the Seagull. It's a 95-mile path around the Isle of Man, and I've walked it several times. Usually Bill has kindly dropped me off at somewhere, and I've walked by myself or with the dog, and then been picked up and joined in the family events. Very nice. It's probably the best walk in the world. Lovely. This is actually the Sound. So this bit is the Calf of Man, a tiny little island at the very tip of the island. And you can see all sorts of, we've seen basking sharks, and I'm not sure whether we've seen dolphins there, but it's lovely. They film on the Isle of Man, and there's some beautiful shots there. So walking, that's okay, but I thought, you know, as a student, we didn't have a lot of transport, so this was my form of transport as a student. There's me with my two housemates, Jenny and Sheena. It's not the best form of transport, and anybody who knows me would know that actually I don't really know anything about cars. I know there are white ones and red ones and blue ones. This is a blue one. So anyway, as I got a little bit older, I did actually buy a car off my mum. This one. As you can see, it's a quality car. And this is actually at our previous house that we renovated. And this was a lovely Victorian greenhouse. Sadly, I believe it's demolished since we left. I think this has also been demolished. This is an interesting car because it was challenging in the mornings when you tried to start it. It went humph, humph. So I called it Humphrey, and I thought, all my cars have names. I only know the colour of them and the names. And I thought Humphrey, yes, I'm going to call it Humphrey Percival. This was just before I met Bill. And it was quite a surprise when I introduced my car, Humphrey Percival, to Bill Percival. So this car was actually on its last legs. As you can see, it's got a large dent in it. The back was even worse. This was shortened in a visit to a patient in icy conditions, and the car was shortened. So this was left. So cycling, now this is my love. Here I am on 6 years old on my brand new bike that Santa has brought me. Look at my face, just beaming. As the third child, we didn't often have new things, so this shiny new bike with lovely forks and everything, and there's a Christmas tree in the background. I just remember it, you know, this day. It was just absolutely wonderful feeling. And the feel of the air on your face and just everything, excellent. Now sadly I grew up and I grew out of this, but I still use my bike rather than the other forms of transport you've just seen. And as a student, I use my bike everywhere. I used to get on the bike and go down the Foss Way to Bath, Bristol. I'd carry on, go to Lulworth Cove, come back via Shaftesbury, Salisbury, back via Rutland Water, and then back to go to medical school. I've crossed Britain, done all Devon, Cornwall, and these 1 in 4s, no problem. And now I think it might be slightly more challenging. This was my standard cycling gear as a student, no helmet, lovely suitable shoes, and that was my holiday kit for the fortnight. I had to camp in the fields. We just start with the side somewhere was good and stop. Now, I mentioned we've got a couple of, well, 3 mathematicians with my husband, my son, and my son-in-law. So we have these complicated mathematical discussions over tea, which I haven't a clue what they're talking about. It just goes well over my head. I'm not going to bother reading all this because it's far too complicated. The key thing here is this bit down here, okay, which you all understand, of course. Now, if you get it wrong when you're cycling, this is what happens to you. If you look carefully, these forks, which should be facing that way, are that way. What you can't see is that the whole of the frame is actually twisted as well. And this here is a fracture of olecranon, and underneath these clothes there's a lot of road rash which still exists today. And I don't look terribly happy. But it still is an absolute love of my life. I still cycle everywhere. It's my main form of transport for any local trips. Swimming. I got into swimming. I wasn't a terribly good swimmer, but as I got older, I took up swimming and I joined the Masters Club. And these are just some of my trophies and medals that I have been awarded in my rather nice swimming gear. For the swimming, I swim about 3 or 4 times a week, and we have a jolly good time. Greg is about twice as fast as me. Greg is a national triathlete level, national level triathlete. But we always say in our lane that we work at least as hard as he does. Sailing. This is not actually me sailing. The trouble with taking pictures when you're sailing is they get wet. This is very important to look at the way the boat is tipped over. Okay, I did a lot of sailing with my best friend, and at school, dinghies and big ships like big boats like this. And the next picture shows Cascade, that I sailed on for many summers, including the summer of '76, which we all remember. I sailed with my best friend and her dad, who was a GP, and again, another person who was probably part of the reason I did medicine. I was just inspired by his work. Cascade was so named because of this. Cascades, inside the storage cupboards, the clips didn't work very well, so all the cutlery and crockery, every time you were sailing, it would cascade out. So this is me up the sail mending something, and would have abseiled back down it. And this is me scrubbing the decks, and I'm not sure, looking at my face, whether I actually needed to scrub the decks. Quite possibly. You get my meaning. Ballooning, hot air ballooning. You'll notice that we have a hot air balloonist coming, David Barefoot, in the new year. This is Shadowfax. I have actually flown Shadowfax as a pilot under training, although I'm not a pilot. We flew with Ian Bridge, who was British champion on numerous occasions. He was also European champion, and I think he was second in the world. Ian was a competitor of David Barefoot, who was coming to speak to us, and David Barefoot, I think, actually probably has a better record. Hot air ballooning, fabulous sport, and if you ever get the chance to do it, then it's a must. This is some of the craft work I do. Now this is not my best piece, but this is one I'm quite proud of. Over the years I've worked on different crafts, and this one was one I set up in our village. We challenged the residents to knit 3-inch squares. So this is made up of 3-inch squares. They could knit flowers or pompons. So we had the elderly knitting, we had the elderly teaching the children in the school. In the schools, we had every single social group that is in the village knitting for us. We put them together, then at 5 o'clock one morning, we yarn bombed our village. You have to ask permission from the parish council to do this, otherwise it's street graffiti. We also had some beautiful butterflies that just quivered in the breeze, and then it disappears as soon as it's there. people said, well, why did you put some of these up there? Some of them are less than perfect. And I said, we should celebrate every child's success. And it caused a lot of intrigue and excitement trying to find the ones that you've done. I certainly did this one, and I'm not sure actually, I think it's the one behind. It's the one that my mum did. And Bill did some pom-poms, and various people have done it, so it was successful. Gardening. As in the community forum that we work in, we were giving children sunflower seeds to grow to make the village look a better place. Now, I'm a recycled teenager, so I decided that I was eligible for this. Bill declared himself to be a recycled teenager, so we grew these sunflowers. Now, photography is a wonderful thing because it looks like mine's bigger, doesn't it? Books. I just love books. I have a passion for books. It was brought home when Bill took 4 car trips to take various books to a charity shop because we really did have to have a clear out. I regularly have 3 or 4 books on the go, including classics, work books, psychology, and novels. For 50 years I've collected stamps, and I have an enormous collection of stamps all over the world. I don't go out of my way to buy them. I collect whatever comes my way because it's just too big a thing to do. But otherwise, other activities. Now, I'm not going to read them all out, but Tiddlywinks is important. Tiddlywinks is really important because it taught me the importance of competition. My grandpa and I played, you've met my grandpa, we played Tiddlywinks and I won nearly every time. Now, how did that happen? He was a really nice grandpa. But you got the joy of entering into competition. Egg and spoon race was my first sporting triumph. At the age of 5, I won it. I was in the village race, and I was really sad when I was pipped to the post. I'm almost on the line by this sort of 20-year-old man. Sad, really. But jacks, I was a past master at the school. My fingernails were absolutely worn away from playing jacks all the playtime. These are all the other things I've done. I'm not going to read them all out. I have to have this matter. You will know who this is. Music. Music is a love of my life. As part of my work, I do mentoring. And as part of mentoring, you're asked a blue sky thing. And I thought, and I brought, what am I going to talk about in this talk? And I said, in the blue sky thinking about what would the best thing to be would be to have Chris Martin and Coldplay doing the whole thing. Thank you, Chris Martin. Couldn't have him. You had to have him. Sorry. Right, work. I did house jobs, as you do. I travelled a long way. I worked with the Queens and I worked with the city. I went as far away as Mansfield and Loughborough. So I really travelled. I then settled in Stapleford. This is 1965 building. I was a GP partner there from 1984. Busy practice. I was safeguarding lead. I led for medical students. I was a partner for some years, and then I took time out to have the children. And I came back and I worked here plus various other places as an assistant or a locum. Now, this picture was actually taken on the day we actually left this building, and guess what? It turned into a pub. Seems to be a habit I have. And yes, it is a Wetherspoons pub. Interestingly, this is called the Sir John Borlase Warren. It was going to be called the Staff and Serpent in memory of the medical building it was before, but they discovered that Sir John Borlase Warren was actually born in this town. I think they probably realised the error of their ways because Sir John was actually a warmongering admiral, and on the very first day it opened there was quite a fight, but they live and learn. So we moved into this fabulous building. There were 2 practices in here. There was a walk-in centre, there was district nurses, it's everybody. My room was just up here. I continued as a partner in general practice until last year, and I gave up clinical commitment then. to continue with the other things which I'll talk about. For 19 years I worked for Bupa doing health screening. First in Clawson Lodge, this splendid old building. Guess what? It's turned into a Ukrainian culture centre and wedding venue. So I think booze comes into that as well. This is the new building here. I have been a GP appraiser for many years, and I still continue to do that. I do maybe up to about 30 appraisals a year, and I absolutely love it. I'm very privileged to go in and find out what people are doing and help guide their professional careers. A year or so after being an appraiser, I was made into a locality lead appraiser. It was called something else initially. That requires you to quality assure the appraiser's work. I've been involved in the training of appraisers, and we meet up once a year to make sure they're happy with what they're doing. And again, it's a great privilege to do that. In the course of my work as a locality lead, I was asked to do some mentoring training. This is probably the most challenging course I've done in my entire life. We use the Egan model, which goes back to the 1950s and looks at facilitating reflective change. Soon after I did my training in mentoring, I was asked to mentor people who were working or not working under GMC conditions. And these are very damaged doctors that you work with, and it's a source of great help and support for them. The model uses looks at where are you now, what would you like to have, and how are you going to get there. We've just set up, through my appraisal work, we discovered a vast amount of stress in the GPs locally, and as a result we put in a bid for some funding and have set up a mentoring service for GPs in Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire, and I'm the Nottinghamshire lead. Hopefully we'll roll it out beyond that, but of course it depends on funding. Mentoring looks at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The basic needs are, if we don't have shelter, food, water, as the refugees don't at the moment, then they will not complete their maximum potential. The unemployed in the next line will not achieve their own personal maximum potential because they're short of these items. This is the area I'm looking at, is more this area, self-esteem. If we don't look after that, and there's no other place in the National Health Service that I'm aware of that looks after that, and our doctors, then this starts to crumble. And I was trying to make this work so that it did crumble, but we couldn't get it to work. But the whole thing will just collapse like an osteoporotic bone. So it's very important that we do look after ourselves so that we can continue to get the best out of people. I also do investigations. I do complaints against performers. So people say, how can you walk onto the dark side? Having been so supportive as a GP and my other roles, I still see it as supportive. If somebody's made a mistake and they are generally reflective, then the investigation will be supportive of them. And these are the documents that we use as standards. More recently, I've been asked to do domestic homicide reviews. Absolutely fascinating work. It's interesting to reflect that when I was a medical student, wondering what to do, I thought, I'd like to be a forensic pathologist. And because I was absolutely intrigued by such things, and I thought, I'm not really sure that with having a family standing on the moors in Yorkshire at 4 o'clock in the morning, working 365 days a year, is that good an idea? So I became a GP, as you do. Is it that different? Probably not, because you take each patient and you investigate each person and put the pieces together. So it seems that I've come full circle to be doing domestic homicide reviews. These are multi-agency reviews. We all get together and look in a no-blame culture as to was there anything different that we could have done, and then the results are put together, and they go nationally on a national record and then maybe change national policy. So I also do a lot of voluntary work, and I have done a lot in the past. I've done cycling proficiency, road safety instructor and examiner. I've worked on PTAs for 20 years. I'm school governor for more than 20 years, and I've been chair of governor, head of personnel, health and safety, safeguarding, behaviour. I help at the swimming club. I've helped at the swimming club, brownies, guides, cubs, etc. The community forum, and indeed Medkai council member and now president. So charity work brings me on to the Jessica Hope Foundation. Now, Jessica was the daughter. I was hoping that her parents could be here, but it's actually Jessica's brother's birthday today, so I said you must go and celebrate at home. So I will present it on behalf of them. But Jessica was the daughter of a colleague and a friend of mine. Beautiful young lady, and at the age of 15 was diagnosed with a grade 4 astrocytoma. Sadly, within 10 months after having chemotherapy, radiotherapy and brain surgery on 2 occasions, she died at home in her parents' arms. So as part of their coping with their grief, they set up the Jessica Hope Foundation. This is very closely linked to Medkai. Jessica's father stores wine for some of you in his wine cellars, but also David Walker set up HeadSmart. You may be aware of HeadSmart. This was a charity that was set up to raise awareness of the possibility of brain tumours and get an early diagnosis and therefore hopefully improve outcome. Funding for this has actually been closed, so the money does not go there anymore. I just thought I'd tie it in. A lot of the money goes to the brain tumour research, which David Walker is also involved with at the University of Nottingham. And a lot of the money goes to the Nottingham University's hospital charity, which fund things for these youngsters. So they get things like iPads rather than rattles to play with on the children's ward. They get age-appropriate things and nice things to do. Finally, they have rainbows. I don't know if anybody's been to rainbows. It's certainly worth if you get the option of going on a professional tour, or indeed as a member of public, I would go. It's an inspirational place. Jessica rested in rainbows. I didn't understand what that meant until I went to rainbows. This is a room where these young people can rest, and the parents can visit at any time of the day or night to see their child before the funeral. But the rest of the building is equally inspirational. So, going back to the Medkai work, I'm going to very briefly talk about Medkai. Medkai, for those that don't know, the earliest records go back to 1828, and it was originally called Nottingham Medico-Chirurgical Book Society. And there we have a picture of I'm not quite sure what it is actually. But it's a nice picture. So the books were actively maintained until the early 20th century, but then it got to 1900, and actually the books they're getting to be historical value only at that point, so they fell into neglect, and they were nearly lost in 1911 when the society moved to new premises. So they managed to keep them, and the university has them, over 1,000 volumes. And the university apparently owns them now, following a gift from Miriam Kaplowicz. They discovered some more books in '73 added to the collection. Now, we went to actually see these, and I'll show you some pictures shortly. The books actually were physically at the university medical library until 1994, and then they were transferred to the Department of Manuscripts and Special Collections at Kings Meadow, which is where we visited them. So they are mostly medical treatises, I can't say that word, from the 16th to the 19th centuries. Many of them published between 1800 and 1860, but more than half of them is pre-1951. So in the Book Society amalgamated and became, the library amalgamated with the Nottingham Medical Book Society, and it became what we now know as the Nottingham Medico-Chirurgical Society, and that was in approximately 1846. And you think that Nottingham Medical Chirurgical Society is probably the BMA is actually modelled on this, and I was talking to the chair of the BMA the other day, and he was saying what year it was, and I said, beat you, we're in 1828. So we went to visit these books. Here we are at the archives, and here are the books. Seeing the books made me realise how lucky we are. The paper is not freely available at that time. Print was not freely available. They couldn't photocopy things, send things by emails. And some of these books are absolutely magnificent. If you wish to go and view them at any time, you can contact the archives and see them. You can see them in the stores, or you can see individual texts. This one struck me as just truly amazing. Hippocrates, and it's all in Latin, so I read it all, of course. 1564, and we were able to handle this book, turn the pages, and it's just truly stunning. And all these hand-drawn pictures, absolutely amazing. This one also I liked, Florence Nightingale, Notes on Nursing, What It Is and What It's Not. Perhaps it's useful to you, Mum. These are some of the AGM and some of the rules, all dated. Again, we could handle all these. So this is where the society met originally, in the Nottingham General and the General Dispensary. And then, oh yes, I found this as well when I was researching this. I thought Nigel, where are you, Nigel Sparrow? There you go. I thought this is possibly one of the earliest CQC inspections. It does actually say the 31st annual report, so it probably is the 31st, but it was the 31st annual report on the state of the General Hospital in Nottingham, open to the sick, the lame and poor, and of any county or nation. How lovely is that? So from 1910 to 1972, the Society occupied premises at 64 St James's Street. I think this is 64 St James's Street, is that correct? Yes, thank you. When you Google it, it comes up with some interesting places, but I was fairly certain that was correct. A splendid building, isn't it? Absolutely splendid. But unfortunately, it was very expensive to maintain and run, so they moved to here. Anne Booth very kindly took this photograph for me, and I thought, interestingly, this will probably go in the archive. So again, thank you, Anne. So here we go. So, Medchi previous presidents. One of the people who struck me when I've been reading this book, Sawbones and Keyholes, was Miss Sarah Gray, FRCS, 1860 to 1941. I'll just briefly tell you about Sarah. Here she is. I can't make up my mind whether she's formidable or what, but quite a remarkable person in my opinion. Sarah was born in Tipperary, 1860. She studied in London. She studied at London Medical School, or whatever it was called at that time, but she was not allowed to qualify because she was a female. So, not to understand that, in 1888 she took the Scottish conjoint qualification, and in 1891 she came to Nottingham as a GP. 8 years later, she was appointed to her first public appointment. Where was this? At Nottingham Women's Hospital. It starts to link in. She was assistant surgeon in charge of outpatients and chloroformist, okay, which I take to be an anaesthetist. For 1 year, All her work was supervised by the men, looking for errors, but they didn't find any. So poor Sarah, she kept on applying for jobs, but every time she applied for senior posts, she was told, oh no, you're underqualified for this job. So she went off and she got the FRCSI, which the I stands for Ireland, in 1902. And she said, okay, what about that? And she became a surgeon to the Nottingham and Notts Convalescent Home, medical examiner to the Board of Education and the Nottingham Education Committee. And then I think very, very insightful of the Nottingham Medico-Chirurgical Society, she was elected to be president. Again, this is quite, I think, look at the dates, 1921, this is around about the time of the suffragettes. And how insightful is that, that they allowed a lady into their presidency. I'm taking my hat off to you, Sarah. Well done. So, Medchi presidents, we come to the presidents. Please do go and have a look around the council room. If you've not been before, it's inspirational. I've just got 3 of the boards photographed here. Couldn't get any more on. Got splendid people like this. I'm growing my beard to match them, up to the more modern ones here. And at this point, I'd like to start to introduce some of the wonderful presidents we have today. Helen. I'd like to present Dr. Alan Murphy, who was president 1976 to 1977. Alan Murphy is a retired GP, lieutenant colonel in the army, reader at the church for 43 years, advisor in obstetrics for the MDU and the Royal College. Excuse me. Chairman of the Postgraduate Education Centre at Queen's, lecturer in general practice at the University of Nottingham, working for Prof Mitchell, previous Medchi president, and for his services to general practice and to medical education, he was awarded the MBE. Sorry? Congratulations.
2,100.
Yes, yes. I must apologise. I've had to shorten everybody's resumes that you sent me. Otherwise, we would have been here till midnight. But yes. So next we have Stanley Harris. Do you want to come up, Stanley? Dr. Stanley Harris. Your other side or wherever, if you like, seat or whichever. Dr. Stanley Harris, 1980 to 1981. He served in the Royal Air Force, single-handed GP, medical advisor in toxicology at Raleigh Industries and Bird Food Products, trustee to the Nottingham General Dispensary at Broad Street. Remember, that's where Medchi was previously. Medical officer to the Nottinghamshire and the Midland Amateur Swimming Association. We tied in there. Chairman of the Nottingham Division of the BMA and various committees. Nottingham Medchi librarian, then secretary, and involved in the move of the society to the PGET at the Nottingham City Hospital. He moved us here. So thank you. Next we have Sandy Saunders. I'd like to come up, Sandy. We probably haven't got enough. Are you okay standing?
I'm okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Sandy, war service with the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers and the Glider Pilot Regiment. GP, medical legal work until he was 90. Medical secretary to the LMC, chairman of the BMA, Nottingham BMA, and Medchi librarian and secretary. Thank you. Miss Leslie Baker. Okay. Consultant obstetrician for the Nottingham City Hospital, the Firs Maternity Home, Grantham and I don't know how you say this, Kesteven Hospital with oncology and fertility work, voluntary consultant in obs and gynae at a mission hospital in Uganda, involved in the obstetrical and surgical skills course in Dilla, run by Abergavenny Hospital, actively supported the medical school in Ethiopia, which she visited several times to teach and to operate. Welcome. Do you want to say, are you okay standing or do you want to say? Okay. Nicholas Galloway. Mr. Nicholas Galloway, 1993 to 94. Consultant ophthalmic surgeon in Nottingham, published several ophthalmic papers and books, member of the Board of International Society for Clinical Electrophysiology of Vision, past president of European Association for Vision and Eye Research, past master of Oxford Ophthalmological Congress, past chairman Nottinghamshire Royal Society for the Blind. Thank you. Right, Dr. Peter Lawson, 1994 to 95. RAF Medical Officer, General Practitioner, Medical Examiner for the CAA and American FAA, Medkai Social Secretary, original GP trainer before the VTS was established, Clinical Assistant to Dr. Duncan Macmillan at St Francis Hospital, Magistrate and Fellow of the Society of Orthopaedic Medicine for a GP. Mr. Nigel Fawcett, Air Squadron with a pilot's license and night rating and flew acrobatic Cessnas, Consultant General Surgeon to Nottingham General Hospital, Ilkeston, Hena and latterly Queen's Medical Centre, Chairman the local branch of Newpie, performed the first keyhole cholecystectomy in an NHS hospital in Nottingham at a time where there was no specialised equipment. Mr. Patrick Bates, 1999 to 2000, Consultant Urological Surgeon to the Nottingham City Hospital, Doctorate of Medicine at Oxford University, Hunterian Professorship at the Royal College of Surgeons, published papers about urodynamics, medical legal work, described by Christopher Lloyd in the Sunday Times as one of the best gardeners in the Midlands. Alan Watson, 2003-2004, inaugurated the Children's Renal and Urology Unit at Nottingham City Hospital, Honorary Professor at University of Nottingham, over 200 publications, Chairman of NUH and UK Clinical Ethics Committees, member of European and International Committees and founder of European Dialysis Group, Doctor of the Year in 2010 from World Child Charity.
I understand actually that Sport England has now withdrawn all its money from the English rugby and given it to the swimmers.
Yes! Excellent!
That's because the swimmers can get out of the pool.
Yes. Thank you. Sorry, we seem to have got the wrong order. The seating the wrong order. Right, Dr. Mike Elliott, 2004-2005, retired GP with sessional appointment in psychiatry, director of Arno Medic Out of Hours Co-op, LMC member on service committees and as a complaints advisor, standards advisor to the GMC Fitness to Practice Committee, section 12(2) approved doctor doing mental health assessments, and Medkai trustee. If you've gone. Dr. Jazz Bilku, GP and GP trainer, postgraduate medical dean for general practice in the East Midlands, chair and provost of the Vale of Trent faculty of the Royal College of GPs, course director for the world's first diploma in prison medicine, Glory of India Award, High Sheriff of Nottinghamshire and Deputy Lieutenant of Nottinghamshire. Dr. Doug Black, GP, Medical Director and Responsible Officer, Director of Commissioning Development and Commissioner, Chairman Nottingham Emergency Services, Independent Chair of Clinical and Cost Effectiveness Committee, Nottinghamshire Hospice Trustee, Lecturer in General Practice, University of Nottingham, and the first graduate of Nottingham Medical School to become President of Medkai. Dr. Caroline Anderson, 2010 to 2011. GP, Associate Professor and GP Careers Champion at Nottingham Medical School, Careers Advisory Group Chair for Medical School, numerous recent publications, and set up Medkai Philharmonic Orchestra. Nigel Sparrow. So Professor Nigel Sparrow, 2012 to 2013. GP Appraiser and Trainer, Medical Director for Revalidation at the Royal College, Chair of the RCGP Professional Development Board, previous Vice Chair of the RCGP Council, Visiting Professor in General Practice at Lincoln University, Deputy GP Dean in the East Midlands Deanery, Senior National GP Advisor and Responsible Officer of the CQC, and OBE for Services to Primary Care. Bill Tennant, Consultant Vascular and General Surgeon. Sorry, let me get out. Consultant Vascular and General Surgeon, Examiner for the Intercollegiate Board and Royal College of Surgeons, Associate Director of Education, Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh. Thank you. Dr. Geoffrey Holman, 2014 to 15, just bear with me a minute. Consultant histopathologist at the City Hospital Nottingham, specialised in most areas of pathology. Research areas, the etiology of non-traumatic fat embolism and HPV testing in cervical screening. Particularly interested in Medkai as podcasting in education, and has appeared in papers ranging from The Lancet to the News of the World. There's myself, 2015 to 16, a jack of all trades. And finally, I'd like to welcome Ian Ellis, our next president, 2016 to 17. Professor of Cancer Pathology, Honorary Consultant Pathologist at the Nottingham City Hospital, author of over 500 scientific publications, immediate past President of the Pathological Society of Great Britain and Ireland, Speciality Advisor to the Royal College of Pathologists, past Chairman of the UK National Coordinating Committee for Breast Pathology, and Advisor to the Department of Health, Union for International Cancer Control, World Health Organization, and International Agency for Research on Cancer. Welcome. So we're nearly finished. Going back to the looking in the languages, I also found when I was looking for Jack of all trades, Master of none, Bulgarian, which says Master of everything, Professor of everything, Specialist in everything. It's looking good, isn't it? Albert Einstein, he said, I have no special talents. I'm only passionately curious. I think that describes me. I'm not saying I'm in Albert Einstein's category, but we do share a common interest. And look at his face. You don't see many of Albert Einstein smiling. Okay. So, I put it to you. Am I a jack of all trades or master of none? Or Jill of no professions and mistress of all? I leave that for you to decide, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, before this fantastic array of people disperse, it's my most pleasant duty to give first thanks to you, Helen.
Thank you.
I think principally for giving this remarkable collection of individuals.
Yeah.
There are many people here who were my teachers,
Yeah.
and many people here who I'm pleased to say have been close colleagues over all of my practice. It's marvellous
Yes,
to see.
it is absolutely marvellous.
I think you've given the society this evening an informative, compelling, personal and entertaining evening, way better than Bake Off.
Thank you.
You've thrilled this audience. You've outlined your family history and the absolute multitude of things that you have got involved in, numerous interests, a showcase of your career and your charitable works, and showcasing the talent here that exists in Nottingham. I'd like to take this opportunity actually from the days when you're still an appraiser, an investigator. Of course, you were reporting all that to myself when I was medical director. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for the quality of that work.
Thank you.
That you did for us. All the other things that you do are of the same quality, as I'm sure they are. Then I think we can absolutely say that you are the queen of all you do.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I also just forgot to say that Martin Knapp, as I meant to give him a mention right at the beginning, I probably was too nervous, and Martin has, I thought I worked with Martin, but I sat and reflected. It wasn't Martin that I worked with Martin, but I was a medical student when you were working at the City. But Martin has come from Australia tonight to be here, and he actually changed his flights in order to be here. So welcome, Martin. Martin Knapp.